What is important that I would like to say here is that takes me to the issue of infrastructure that you talked about. And to say very clearly that, of course, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has a very strong vision and commitment to addressing this issue. And the last Executive Council meeting, before we went on break, has approved the Renewed Hope Infrastructure Fund. And the Renewed Hope Infrastructure Fund is designed to address the bulk of this infrastructural deficit in country that you have talked about. From roads, super highways, talking about rail, and all the other logistical infrastructure. And in agriculture, talking about storage and processing facilities and irrigation. And I think from your submission, you pointed out all of these things. If there is irrigation, in some places it is possible for you to have maize produced 3 times in a year. So all of these things we are aware. And of course, given the massive water resources that we have, I think it is only right and sensible that we should look into that. And I want to say that the vision of the Renewed Hope Infrastructure Fund is to address all of these things at scale. Now, the other point I would like to react to is, you talked about post-harvest. Yes, I will tell you that just 2 days ago, Wednesday and Thursday, there was a program that took place in the NAV Center, which is called the Post-Harvest Connect. That's the very first one. It was the maiden edition. And this is also coming out of the realization that our post-harvest losses are just too much. Even with the little production we are having, we are losing in some instances 20%, some even up to as high as 60%. So we thought what we need to do is to bring all stakeholders together. And that was why the Post-Harvest Connect was approved as, as an event that will bring all actors together. Because one thing in Nigeria is that if there is no platform to bring everybody together, everybody is operating as in silo, and many people will not be able to make the most. They want certain things, they don't even know who to connect with. So I think that explains why the Ministry of Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is championing that. And I will definitely want to assure you that we believe just taking off or reducing certain percentage of that loss will contribute massively to the production volume that we already have. Now, the other aspect is the aspect of mechanization. And to report that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has charged us very clearly that we just have to do something to change the productivity index of our farmers. And one of the reasons why our farmers are not productive is the fact that they are just using very crude method of production. So mechanization currently is put at about 0.02, which is just too abysmally low. Even the African average is about 1.7, while the global average is about 2.5 horsepower per hectare of land. So we are working very hard on this, and we have 3 programs concurrently running. The green, that is the Green Imperative program, which I'm sure my distinguished senators will definitely know about it, because it is something that was passed or approved for implementation in the Senate and the House of Rep. It's still on, and that is ongoing. And then we also have the Greener Hope National Agricultural Mechanization Program, which is also in the works right now. We also have an MOU we had with John Deere, and the MOU is designed to have tractors that will be brought into country so that it will be available across the various production centers over a time frame, giving certain particular numbers. That also is in the works. Now, alongside all of this, we are also interested in irrigation. And so we need to do part of the mechanization scheme is also talking about irrigation facilities. And given the scale of irrigation required, fuel cost, for example, is a major issue. So what we are looking now is irrigation facilities that will be powered by renewable energy. And I think I would like to use this privilege to say that our distinguished senators and members, in supporting farmers, these opportunities are available. I would like you, when you have farmers that are in irrigation sites or who have irrigation capacities, please, this is one major intervention you will do that will give the maximum impact. When you talk about impact analysis at a scale, because farmers are spending so much. We just finished the 2023-2024 dry season farming, which for the first time we targeted about 120 hectares to plant wheat in the 15 wheat producing states. And as at the end of the season, that is last month, the report we have is we've achieved 118,000 hectares of planted wheat across the 15 states. So we are trying our best to make sure we ramp up production. But like you said, the challenges are things we have to address. Now, the last thing I would like to talk about is when you said the issue of wheat R&D and extension. That is true. But also, the reform of the research system is ongoing. And a new law was passed by the Ninth Assembly, which amended the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria Act, and a lot of provisions were given in it, and we are right now working to develop the guidelines and all other protocols needed to give effect to those, what did they call it, reforms in the Act. But let me quickly cite one. When you go to many of the research institutes, they have technologies, but the technologies are on the shelf, and not many people are interested in investing. So what we have done in the new Act is to say the research institutes can now have what we call spin-off companies. When they develop these spin-off companies, the spin-off companies will take this technology and take it to market. If it becomes a mature technology and is developed up to a scale, then investors may now have comfort to come over and take over from them. That also is something in the offing, so that at the end of the day, technologies can be made available to our farmers. But overall, let me say that truly, I agree in totality that it's high time for us to identify areas where we have capabilities in country, have a program of where we want to take these capabilities to, right, and begin to work on it absolutely. And I think to do this, the Ministry of Agriculture, in the case of agriculture, needs the subnationals. And let me quickly add here that the subnationals have visited us at various times. In the last count, more than 17 state governors, to tell us they are ready this time around, seeing the energy and the focus of the two of us. They really want to work with us. And on this note, you could remember that just some few months back, the president was in Niger State to commission 1,000 tractor mechanization scheme by the farmer governor Mohammed Umar Bago, where already 300 has been delivered, 200 are on their way, and many other things that they have in terms of tiller machines and the like. The idea is to massively produce food in Niger State, taking the advantage of that land that we talked about. And I think maybe the representative, I'm sure, might have other, very well-prepared speech to allude to this. But the point I want to make is that truly, no one can do it alone. We all need ourselves, and that is why I want to say kudos to the chairman for your thoughtfulness in getting the most economically viable subnational to come to table to discuss these issues at the level we are discussing them. And I know that that is where the market is, that is where the money is. And when farmers take their produce, if you stop over at Jeba and you are counting the number of produce moving in trucks, if you see cattle, of course it's a long trailers, but if you see others like horticultural produce, it is in this canter. The one they call canter. That's where you see any one of them. If I close your eyes and just say this is horticultural produce, So you can see even our citizens, they are already devising a way of solving their own problems. But we need to key into all of these things as part of that wider ecosystem by providing the requisite support for all of them to do what they need to do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. When the representative of the MP made comments, I think he alluded to the issue around information sharing to enable them plan adequately for export. Those who are exported. I don't know whether he has left. Yeah. He has left? Yes, the MP. But what I'm trying to bring out here is, I think beyond what has been said, we have to acknowledge the reality that over the past 3 decades, this was not our priority. And that because now we are prioritizing this as part of our, national efforts, the renewed hope agenda of President Tinubu is making these things much, much clearer, much more focused, much more pointed. What I would like to suggest here is it also calls for us to now go back to the drawing board and redesign the system to accommodate the realities. There is no way an exporter can make provision for some of these facilities that he was talking about. It's not possible. So it's government that has to do that, and I think what it means is that the MPA and all other systems that have been designed to facilitate the export of agricultural produce in whatever form, but like we said, in a processed form, because there is a lot of room for process. And when you do that processing, it gives you prime value, and it means when you put in place the infrastructure, there is enough fund to even be able to pay back. Because you cannot do an expensive business where your product is just that cheap. I think that's the point I want to make. And both the customs, everybody, and I want to say, based on my knowledge informally, I know the customs are also doing enough, and they are doing very well in terms of supporting the facilitating role they are supposed to do for agricultural export. It's just that, like we all agree here, there is need for more information. And capacity building, I feel very pained when every time we talk about capacity building, people think it is just an avenue for people to pack money. If you bring the most expensive equipment, the most expensive technological tools, and you have the most ignorant and illiterate people to run it, you will go nowhere. Capacity building is in qua non to progress and development. We are talking about knowledge-driven economy of God's sake. So knowledge is key, and you have to find every avenue to share this information as much as you can. And I think all of us are in the ecosystem, and we should lend support to each other in trying to actually give out this information. When the MD was talking about I've shared so much information, I said, why should I hold that information? I'm out here to serve the Nigerian citizens. The charge by the president to us is to serve his mandate and all the promises he has made to Nigerians. So we owe Nigerians that duty to explain every opportunity we have. And I think that goes to all of us who are agents of the federal government and other subnationals. Thank you for this opportunity, and I congratulate the chairman once again.
Thank you. Somebody's raising his hand there. Just, I think that should be about the last.
On commodity exchange. So, if I said board, it was an error. The other aspect is the issue of legal treaty, which is quite important. But happy to note that, of course, the National Assembly has the sole responsibility of domesticating any treaty. Any treaty that is not being domesticated by the National Assembly is null and void and of no effect. So I think what we need to do is for the National Assembly this time around to check which of the treaties have we given effect to. If we have not given effect to it, I think now that we are seeing the damage, then we need to review our signature. And even where we have signed and we have domesticated, honestly, if it is hurting our national interest, it is time for us to review what our national interest is. So I think this is well taken. And so overall, I think what needs to be done is for you to check the laws. The output coming from this discussion is saying we need to look at all the laws, including even the custom law, by virtue of seeing what role is custom expected to play, and has provisions been made to strengthen them in playing that role, and where there are already existing law that empowers them to play certain role. This should now be made clear as part of the massive enlightenment program for Nigerians to understand what we're doing here. Now, the other aspect about license, sale of license, I think the discussion has clearly said we need to review the acquisition, utilization, and disposal of any approved license in Nigeria. You need to look at that end to end. We must take interest. It's not good enough for you to just sign off a license and then whatever happens to it, you don't know. I think the facts, imagine, and the example cited is clearly saying that we need to go into the entire life cycle of a license from acquisition to disposal so that we know how to manage it and safeguard our country. Now, in terms of the issue of funds, solid minerals funds, well, the point is, I believe this is something you legislators need to look at. If there is already none existing, and you need to look at that. But overall also you need to look at other laws that have been passed where there are funds. For example, we all know there is a natural resources fund. So what is the role of the natural resources fund in empowering and supporting the emergence of a veritable ecosystem that will maximally exploit our mineral resources, for which these mineral resources are the ones that constitute the commodities. So I think you need to look at it. I don't think we're operating in a blank slate. But I think the other argument here is that there are so many things that are not having handshake. So we need to look for those things and force them to shake themselves, and if possible, force them to become in-laws to each other if possible. So finally, the aspect of warehouse for export, I think within the concept of the warehouse receipt, which has been mentioned earlier, I think it will be a good thing. And now that this issue is being raised, perhaps also it may be time for Nigerian Customs to begin to review the operation of its own warehouses and see the possibility of expanding, given their expertise and role, to even make some of these, their platform available for will-be users within the concept of the exportation and importation process for our commodities. That way, you even have a seamless, assurance that these are verified people who are using our facility. I think these are the, things I picked out coming from this, discussion. And finally, the financing of local and international trade that is mentioned. Obviously, as a practitioner, he is confirming to us there is a lot of issues around the issues of letters of credit for exporters, and I think the aspect of export, is it repatriation, we call it? Is that? I think there is something having to do with repatriation of proceeds of export, isn't it? And there is something around it, and I know for a fact that there are a number of things that was done even in the National Assembly. So I think the honors will now be lying on you, Mr. Chairman, and your colleagues, to go back and check this aspect. Because I remember in the Ninth Assembly, you remember Senator Yusuf Yusuf? Yusuf Yusuf was upbeat on this subject matter because he has worked in that field as a merchant, banker in the past. He has so much knowledge in it. He's an economist, and he has warned us about this. This is now coming from a practitioner. So I think it's time for you to check the export repatriation, or is it proceed of export repatriation or something like that. There is something, about credit expansion. Yeah, I know there is a law. There is something that is there which needs to be reviewed, because it means if it is not working, it calls for a review so that it is made to work. With these few comments, I think overall this discussion has been this fruitful in bringing out these key issues I have mentioned. So please, I would like to call on all of you to give all the discussants a very round of applause. When I say round, don't sit down, they will give you a round of applause. When I say round, I don't want you to, I want you to go round. Clap, making your hand to go round. The round of applause I want for them. A round of applause for them. At least, thank you very much. Let the place be alive a bit now.
The aspect of solar powering
First, let me appreciate the fact that we're here to engage with respect to the aspect of commodity exchange as it affects agricultural produce. And I think in the course of discussion, of course, it means we need to look at the possibility of what is our production level, because the area I was emphasizing on is the fact that President Tinubu placed emphasis on the food security situation of the country. So whatever we want to do, of course, you have to ensure that you have sufficient food to feed your citizens before you allow it to be traded in a manner that maybe perhaps it might leave your shore. So, but in doing that also, we realize that, look, we need to increase productivity. And to increase productivity means you need to look at those things that farmers are suffering from. And at the same time, increase our production cycle. Right now, we depend only majorly on rain-fed agriculture. And we are saying that it's time for us to improve on our irrigation capabilities by doing dry season farming, which we have started last year massively, targeting maize and wheat and other commodities. So I'm suggesting that members of the National Assembly, our findings show that farmers are finding it difficult to fuel irrigation facilities. So we are suggesting that there are solar-powered irrigation pumps that members of the National Assembly can use as part of their constituency program to empower their farmers who are involved in dry season farming, so that together we can increase our production and increase the volume of food available, thereby reducing the impact of the food inflation and, of course, guaranteeing food security for our citizens.
So the message exactly to lawmakers?
The message is let them find ways to support whatever we are doing in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. Let them include in their zonal intervention and other support programs the purchase of solar-powered irrigation pumps, which they will use to empower their farmers, and also seeds and any other thing that we can support the agricultural production cycle. Because one of the first things all of us must guarantee is food security for our citizens. And I believe when people are food secure, then they can reason with you. And I know politicians, you need people to reason with you.
At some point, what stage do you think we're going to get to?
Well, until today or until now, Nigeria was relatively food secure. But the challenges that brought about this are not necessarily local challenges. They are global in nature. Because if you look at the COVID-19, it impacted on our farmers because many of them were not able to, what did they call it, the Naira redesign impacted on our farmers. They were not able to get Naira to pay for labor, to buy inputs and the like. And you also recall the flooding of 2022-2021. That also affected a number of farmers and they were not able to recover from that. So what we are doing right now is to find ways to further improve on our capacity to produce. So we are amping up dry season farming. We are also providing more support to farmers now so that more farmers will be incentivized to go back to land. And we are also looking at the possibility of many of our institutions that have land, which they can also bring into production. So these and many more are the things we're doing. And of course, the President is also upbeat about our low mechanization. And so we're having programs to deal with increasing our mechanization. Right now, the level of mechanization is about 0.02 horsepower per hectare. And the African average is about 1.7, while global average is about 2.5. So we now have a benchmark that we should use to improve our mechanization for our farmers. And I think both the federal government and subnationals are doing so much on this front.
Thank you very much.